My name is Mark Kitabayashi. I have been practicing residential real estate in Thurston County for 26 years. So I have gone through up and downs of the market and so forth. I want a little bit of a more light to what previous to person has said. Roughly about 619 homes were sold in Tumwater city address, and out of that, 234 are houses that are 1990 or older. What does that mean? It's most likely those homes are going to have a lower energy score. And if you look at it, 1980 or older would be about 161. And right now, our current ordinance does state that there's $4,000 reserved per jurisdiction with a 4,000 times 4 that will be going used towards the helping a subsidizing getting a home energy score. Right now, $4,000, divide that by, right now, even divided by $150 or $300, you are looking about maybe 10 to 15 homes per year that are able to get the subsidy. And I know that on the ordinance says if they're not able to provide subsidy, then they're exempt. It sounds really good. It sounds equitable for lower income person, but does that really meet the whole purpose of energy score if you're exempting? Because energy score or the home energy efficiency is not just the equitable part. It's to me, it's equitable for every single homeowner. And as you see it, is every single homeowner have the same equity? And most likely, the lower income to middle income person have borrowed more money than the, let's say, more established person, putting lower down payment. Washington State does offer financial assistance as down payment programs, or even a FHA loan when it requires 3.5% down payment. Yes, I know less down payment means the less equity that you have in a home to start with. So, $400, $300, whatever the money that might be, that is the added cost. And I think there's a lot more effect in the lower income to people who borrow more money to buy a house. So those are the things that all need to be considered. As the market shifts, I think our thinking needs to shift. And we need to consider, and I truly believe the volunteer way, as how we ask people to volunteer for a inspection to happen at home as a buyer, I think the same attitude needs to be taken in consideration. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mark. All right, and last, Christina, and the handwriting is hard for me.
Janice, yes, sorry. I used to work in pathology. I think I took after those doctors for a while. It's gotten progressively worse.
I can't read my own, so.
And now I work for Builder, and his writing is like one of my pathologists, so it's inherited. Hi, good evening. My name is Christina Janice. I've been a lifelong Thurston County resident. I'm currently serving as a broker in the area. I've just recently positioned away from the Tumwater site, but I've got a Tumwater neighborhood that I've been a part of for the last 4 years. And I'm going to kind of talk off topic. I think all my partners there have kind of touched the basis. I'm going to talk on the senior side of it. The community I worked in had a lot of seniors, and while it is a middle-class income home, they are coming in with fixed incomes. And they're asking, now what? If I have to downsize or move into an assisted living, now what? I've actually seen a lot of estates. The kids don't have money. I'm working with an estate right now that's out in Yelm. These kids don't have the funds. This is mom's property. She did do the transfer on death deed, but they have limited funds. If this was a year from now, how are they going to get this to fruition? And like Mark alluded to, we can't keep exempting people. Then why do we have a mandate if we keep putting an exemption forward? My stepmom, my dad passed last year, and I knew they were on fixed income. I guess you don't know how bad it is until you start diving into their books and you're trying to get help, right? I did not realize how little money they had and how disrepaired that home was until you dive in. Because you walk in, it's a cute little house. It's behind the walls, and it's all these problems have been coming forth. I was away at a conference last week, and she goes, oh, Chris, I had to get a new water heater. I said, oh, it's the new heat pump ones. It was $3,000. You know how much she nets? $2,200 a month. how are seniors going to do this? You know, I'm worried about having her groceries on her table next month. She's got a little credit card. Does she need to go in debt? Do they need to pull out more debt to energize? These things will happen as these markets shift. Buyers are, I'm already seeing it now, buyers are demanding everything, even things that aren't structural or safety. They're demanding, well, if you're gonna clean the furnace, I want an AC on that, you know? And so when we see these numbers happen, we have to look at what the cost is up front to these sellers and what their position is. So I just want to keep that equity lens open. It matters, and there's a lot more people like my stepmom in this county that barely get by, barely have the infrastructure, the wherewithal. And, you know, market's not great for me either. I pitch in when I can, but it's a different market out there, and so we have to look at that and just keep that in mind. There's a lot of folks out there that are barely struggling, and they have to make those decisions. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Okay. No further speakers? Sorry, no public commenters online, perfect, okay. So public comment is closed. Thank you all. All right. Next on the agenda, we've got the Climate Resilience and Community Engagement Introduction. What's that?
Item 6.
That is item 6 on my agenda. Do I have the wrong one?
Coach's Corner isn't on the agenda.
Yeah, meeting by.
Oh, I see. I see.
Thank you,
Ah. Okay, so let's flip the script here, jump the gun. Was looking at the wrong. Okay, so Coach's Corner. All right, aptly named, because for those of you that don't know, I am a high school basketball coach, so we entertain that here. Yeah, commissioners, this question will help with our presentation as their next meeting is with City of Olympia and Lacey Blaine and their commission. How can other equity commissions help support?
Being a vital ally or mentor. Collaboration. We can share successful ordinances, drafting little tools. I repeat, getting the well. They've come up with some good ideas. Resource knowledge.
Please jump in.
Learning from their experience. We are all new at this.
Iterating on what they both said, maybe in a little different word, but just tapping into the wisdom and knowledge and experience that they have that could be very helpful to Tumwater to our endeavors.
Expand that even further, I would appreciate just kind of that outside perspective. They're close enough. I wonder what they feel like are issues in our community, or where they feel that we could support our community just from where they're sitting. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
More perspective. Commissioners.
Yeah, I'd say unified community engagement, by hosting regional forums, advocate jointly together as a cohesive group, state agencies on shared regional issues like transit, housing, equity issues. So it's more than just, individuals, the whole group.
Encouraging, co-learning, co-creation, inviting us over often, encouraging more meetings that bring us all together, so we can get to know each other and work together.
Yes, just like someone said about ordinances, but ordinances, that they've worked through and they've created that can work here, so we won't have to reinvent the wheel. So just, hey, what do you think we need? All your growing pains, and then can you share that ordinance with us?
On the flip side of that, what has been terrible?
Yeah.
What has not worked, right?
Yeah.
So we don't make those same mistakes.
Lessons learned.
Yes, lessons learned, absolutely. Roses and thorns, right? I think I hear called things all the time. Anybody else?
Tagging on to what Angela just said, what's working for them? What do they see in their communities that's really working well? Inner city transit, is it working for them? Changes that have happened. That would be lovely to hear a lot more about that.
Hearing a joint meeting, future with them.
Next month.
Next month.
Mhm. Also, what about the red flags? What did you notice was a red flag right away? What tipped you off? How did you see that? What data did you use in that?
There's some tips in connecting with the community.
Feedback off what you said, something like maybe like a joint public forum together. Yeah, we can, more feedback from the community. Mm-hmm.
All right, I've jotted down some notes here, and I will surmise this as part of the presentation for our joint time. But just kind of a recap, just to make sure I have everything. So it sounds like mentorship, coaching, collaboration, sharing of perspectives and experiences and lessons learned, and red flags and what's worked for them, and more joint time, just ways that we can learn from them and also grow with them. That sounded like I captured that, and I look forward to our time next month together. That should be a lot of fun. Okay, now let's try again. Next on the agenda, the Climate Resilience and Community Engagement Introduction. Over to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Shreya, and I've been working over the past couple of months with Alyssa and Water Resources and Sustainability. I've been serving in AmeriCorps service term as a community resilience fellow through the Civic Spark program. I started in January this year after completing my undergrad in environmental public health at UW, where I supported different projects related to environmental justice, community capacity building, and emergency preparedness. So over the last couple months here, I've had the opportunity to build on this experience a bit. So since January, I've been supporting specifically the implementation of climate resilience policies and actions outlined in the climate element of the Tumwater Comprehensive Plan, so the climate element that was adopted in 2025. Right now, I'm specifically working on implementing the climate element policy 10.1, which, or like supporting the implementation which mandates strengthening community outreach and response capabilities for climate-related health and hazard issues, specifically prioritizing frontline communities to acknowledge economic, social, and health disparities. So especially during acute climate events like heat waves or wildfire smoke events, there are regional alerts that are sent, like there's Thurston County alert, there's the city social media, but there is a lack of targeted, localized pathways to check on vulnerable community members. So this can include residents who are linguistically isolated or homebound seniors or people with limited transportation or other access and functional needs. So to bridge this procedural equity gap, I'm currently at least starting a community resilient partner network. So trying to build a network or a database of community-based organizations, faith-based groups, neighborhood groups, and just any advocates who can collaboratively amplify emergency safety alerts and eventually in the future conduct wellness checks to support like their neighbors or other people in their community, whoever they serve, whoever is around them, in order to support larger climate resilience efforts. So my fellowship is wrapping up. My last day will be September 4th, but before that comes, I wanted to ensure this framework can be informed by this commission. So instead of opening this discussion today due to limited time, I'll be following up tomorrow with a brief five-minute feedback survey, and I will be opening up slots for just 15-minute virtual meetings over the next 2 weeks for people who do have the time and interest in meeting one-on-one to share contacts and ideas for priority resources. Well, thank you, everyone. And I will pass it off to Alyssa, unless anyone has questions. I'm not sure if there's time.
So the chair is going to call the next agenda item. I do want to say Shrey has been an incredible resource to the city, and I really wanted to make sure you got to meet her before she started reaching.
The next agenda item, the council request introduction with Mayor Pro Tem Kelly and Councilmember Black.
Thank you, Chair. First, I want to thank all of you. I kind of threw something at you right away, but I felt like if there was a group to look at this was the group, and this is exactly why we have created an equity commission. I would think I need to first state, I think having a home energy score is a good thing. And I wanted to make sure, after all we've heard on council, we've had countless evenings of public comment where we've heard a lot of different stories, a lot of different views regarding the home energy score. I wanted to make sure, and my seatmates wanted to make sure, that we weren't missing anything, that there isn't any unintended consequences, that we aren't doing something good in one way and then doing something that is going to hurt community members in another. So that is why I wanted you all to maybe look at this through a wider lens, look at it through, sometimes I think that there is confusion regarding equity and equality, just because everybody has to pay the same, or that doesn't mean that it's equity. If we're looking at subsidizing a program before it even starts out, does that cause a red flag, meaning that already we know it's going to be unfair to people if we're going to have to put city dollars forward to make sure that a project is sustainable for our community members? I also wanted to look at, through an equity lens of staff. I work for state government for more than 30 years. And all the time there is great programs, great ideas that take place. And we'll say it's a zero budget. It's not going to cost anything to start that program, and never is that true. never have I seen that be true. There's always going to be extra staff time. Even if you have a staff member who's willing to do it, other staff are gonna have to either pick up the pieces when it comes to that staff person's work that they're now focusing on this new program. It's never a zero budget impact. And also, I thought this is just a good opportunity to really listen. We've had so much public comment. I know my inbox, I just kept, like, right up until 4 o'clock, it was like more and more and more. So this is important to our community. And we aren't, I'm going to speak on it. We're not a council that's just going to rubber stamp things because Olympia did or the county did. We're Tumwater. Our community is different. And so thank you so much for taking this opportunity to look at this ordinance and helping us work through it and looking through it through a wider lens to make sure that we're not leaving people out who haven't been able to be a part of the conversation. We've heard from a lot of people that, are we missing something? Have we done our due diligence getting the message out about this program? Have we, I didn't explain it very well at the last council meeting, but there is the Healthy Environment for All Act, and cities are required to take part in that. And it's to make sure that community members who have historically been left out of the conversation, they're looked upon to, like, what is the impact going to be on them? And that is something that is new. It was a state agency requirement that cities, as part of the Comprehensive Act, are required to look at it in that way too. Are we doing that? Are we doing all the engagement that we can? So again, thank you so much, and those are the things that I just want to take a closer look at before council makes a decision, and I want to hear from you.
And I will say, what Kelly said, a more formal process, because I've written it all down. I have some questions for you. What she says summarizes it, but I'm going to go into more detail, okay? So, good evening, Equity Commissioners. First of all, thank you for your willingness to serve on Tumwater's Equity Commission. Tonight, I want to spend a few minutes explaining why the City Council asked this commission to review the proposed Home Energy Score Ordinance. Council wants your perspective before we make our decision. When people hear the word equity, they sometimes assume it means supporting or opposing a particular policy. Don't see it that way. Equity in this case is about understanding who benefits, who may be unintentionally burdened, and whether there are ways to achieve our goals while minimizing harm. The proposed Home Energy Score Ordinance has generated strong opinions from many sides. Some prospective home buyers support it because they believe having information about a home's energy efficiency allows them to make better informed purchasing decisions. They want transparency and to understand future utility costs and potential improvements before making what may be the largest investment of their lives. On the other hand, many homeowners and real estate professionals have raised concerns. Real estate agents and brokers worry that another required inspection could increase costs, complicate transactions, and create additional barriers during the home selling process. I am also thinking about another group, our longtime residents, especially seniors and others living on fixed incomes. Many have spent decades building their homes and their lives in Tumwater. If they decide to sell, will this ordinance create financial burdens they did not anticipate? Will additional costs or required improvements make selling more difficult? Will some homeowners become anxious simply because they fear their home may not receive a good score? These are legitimate questions. At the same time, we should also ask whether buyers deserve access to information that could affect their monthly expenses and long-term financial planning. Both perspectives matter. This is why your work is so valuable. The council is asking you to look beyond whether the ordinance is good or bad. Instead, we're asking you to examine how it impacts different members of our community. As you review this proposal, I encourage you to think broadly. Who benefits? Who may experience unintended hardships? Are there populations that could be disproportionately affected? Are there ways to reduce barriers while still accomplishing the ordinance's intended purpose and goals? Should there be exceptions, financial assistance, education, or implementation strategies that make the process fairer for everyone? I also hope you'll remember that this review is not about choosing one side over another. It's about listening carefully, weighing competing interests, and helping the council understand the full picture. Our responsibility as elected officials is to make informed decisions. Your responsibility as commissioners is to help us identify impacts we might otherwise overlook. So I look forward to hearing your recommendations and learning from your discussion. I have a couple of questions here, but I'll select two. What are the lessons from communities that have been successful with this ordinance? Let's learn and build on those lessons. Another one I have is, how can we work with local energy companies and other organizations to help consumers upgrade those appliances, water heaters, etc.? And with that, that's about 5 minutes, and I am done. Michael, I have some questions here if you wanted it.
Yeah.
Can I leave this with you for questions? So I didn't want to read all of them because there was about 10 of them, and that would have been another 3 minutes. So that's for you and the other commissioners.
Okay. So let's see. So before we hear our presentation, how would you like to discuss? How would you like to approach the topic and your recommendation?
Where do you like?
Asking. What am I asking?
Oh, I'm happy to do a small assist here.
Yes, please.
So we wanted to make a little bit of time before you hear from Alyssa, the subject matter expert on this policy. We want to make sure that maybe we provide some clarity amongst yourselves on what question are you trying to answer? What are some valuable points that you sort of agree that you're looking out for? Because we have 7 different perspectives, essentially, on the commission, right? And so I think Councilmember Jefferson provided some amazing questions, but I wanted to make sure that we made some space so you could have a discussion before you even hear the presentation.
That's for us then.
That's for you. That is just a pause for you
Yeah.
to see if you would like to think about a framework that you're using to go into this.
And Michael, those questions that I had might be helpful too. It would be page number 3.
Right here at the bottom. Or, I'm sorry. Would you like me to read the questions just
Sure.
and just leave it there? Okay.
I mean, I would.
Yeah. So I'll just read them off here. So who benefits? Who may experience unintended hardships? Are there populations that could be disproportionately affected? Are there ways to reduce barriers while accomplishing the ordinance's intended purpose? Should there be exemptions, financial assistance, education, or implementation strategies that make the process fair for everyone?
I think we have to be careful in our discussion to distinguish between equity as in an equity commission and public home equity.
Oh, yeah,
Very good.
good point. Very good point.
What came to mind for me was, I asked the question, who benefits from this? And it came to my mind. And I could see the possibility of the perfect storm for, wealthier, property owners, buying up homes that have lower, scores. And I view the homes possibly being stigmatized because they have a lower score, because when they can't afford to upgrade, the house is possibly way too old. And so the people that are trying to sell their homes are maybe forced to lower the price of their home, and someone swoops in and buys this, and then they're able to benefit from maybe the upgrades. They raise the price of that home, and that person loses their equity, and the possibility for first-time home buyers are unable to buy the home. I'm afraid it might change a community completely. And the other thing I thought of too, when I was reading over this ordinance, I was concerned about gentrification. There's a history of that, where are pushed out of their community. So I wanted to see data that shows me that this is not going to happen. I want to see data that, okay, you have this scoring, and there's people that upgrade, but who are the people that are upgrading? Are the people that are upgrading, are they wealthier homeowners that are able to do it? Or are they people that really should do it, but they can't afford to because their home is older? Does that make sense?
So we did add a slide. We pulled out all the questions that were sent in. So we have your exact wording on one of our last slides to make sure that we highlight all of the questions that the commissioners asked.
And then another thing I was thinking is, why would we prefer a mandatory disclosure as inherently more effective than a voluntary? Why do we just automatically think that if it's mandatory, it's going to be better than voluntary? I mean, I don't understand that. And so, you know, why can't we look at incentive-based approach and voluntary? And then you mentioned exemptions or equity and equality. I always think of the size shoe example. You give everybody the size 10 shoe, but not everybody can wear it. You give a person what they need. And then there's people that are in the community that need different things, just because I just give everybody the same thing.
And maybe this is already in the ordinance, but I would like to know what the difference in inspection is going to be between what will be required and what TSC would do for free.
So to kind of get us back to the question of how would we like to approach the topic and the recommendation, I think the question about unintended consequences is crucial for us when we're being presented the information that we think of and list unintended consequences. And I wonder if in the presentation or in a response at some point, we will receive information of how those unintended consequences would be mitigated. So in my work in communications, when we come up with a communications plan, we think of what could go wrong, or what could prevent us from being successful in our communication. And we call those risks, and then we have a mitigation aspect of it, right? So wondering if we could just request, once we had listed our unintended consequences that we identified, we could request what would be the mitigating factors that the ordinance would provide for that.
And also, in addition, combining Angela and Tina's. Talking about lessons from communities that have done this successfully. Have they seen any equity effects, people equity, not public? Gentrification issues and barriers to first-time home buyers, different populations.
second, importantly, it was on their, I can't remember the name of their scoring board, but he was on there and he found that the scoring was being done biasly. So how do we prevent that from happening?
I also want to know what, how we're going to track success or not success.
What does it look like?
Yeah. Once you implement something, you have to get feedback and working, not working. Fortunate people are getting patients or non-compliance and that type of trend or track, so.
And the $4,000 budget was brought up. So that's used up in about 15 or 20 homes max. So will the other people, will they be penalized? That's, I don't know. I mean, so once that money is used up, then what happens? No one else gets benefit from this. Great.
Yes, please.
Slides ready while you continue to discuss. Sure we're respecting your time.
One thing that comes to my mind is a pretest. In other words, this is an idea on the table. What are the complications that could occur, as you talked about, with the communication plan? So we fund a small study where we send out home energy experts and do 20 to 30 homes in Tumwater, right now ones that are on the market, and look at their energy scores and what those recommendations are, what the costs are to the seller, to the buyer, what they think the implications. A little, yeah, a pilot test case. Yeah, because I think that we have some great comments and we've each got some thoughts on it, but we need some data points. And, you know, always is wonderfully mentioning, let's have some data. It seems like this is important enough. We need to look at that, and then the unintended consequences will start to show. Look at the variety of that small sample size.
And along with that, data showing that, will this really affect carbon? Yeah. What's the projected picture of that? I mean, sure you can say it's going to, and that's, you know, that's the goal. You want to eliminate that, and who doesn't? But will it be effective? Is there another way?
If not, we'll go ahead and move forward with the presentation.
Evening, everyone. My name is Alyssa Jones-Flood. I am City of Tumwater Sustainability Manager, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to listen and learn from you all tonight on ways that we may improve the Ordinance 2026-004 or take another direction altogether. Next slide, please. The basic idea of the ordinance is that buyers will get a simple score, a report that estimates energy use, energy costs, a list of recommended upgrades, information about subsidies and assistance in order to get upgrades. Sellers will provide the score on the home listing so that people, before they even go to an open house, call a realtor, they can search online, like I think I do sometimes on Zillow, just like look at what the homes are. Then you can also look at what the efficiency of certain homes are before you do decide to use a realtor's time or go visit and travel to those spaces. So you can know that information before you even touch the home. The city in general aims for affordable utility bills for our residents. Utilities, especially energy right now, the cost is rising and continues to seem to be in that particular upward trend. We would like a reduced energy burden experienced by our residents. We have more than 1,200 households that are on either LIHEAP or PSE help for bill assistance. And that is numbers from 2025 that I request every year. We would like lower community-wide emissions. We have goals that meet the state mandated target to reduce emissions to net zero by 2050. And we would also like our residents to have comfortable and efficient housing stock over time. Like one of the public commenters mentioned, we have a lot of older homes in the city, a lot of homes that were built before our fancy new energy code that are less efficient. And one way to make them more efficient is for people to learn that they're inefficient to begin with and where they can start to work on that. It doesn't always have to be a heat pump, a big expensive heat pump. Sometimes it's adding insulation in a place where you didn't know you didn't have it. Next slide, please. The Home Energy Score works through a qualified professional. So there is a certified home energy score assessor that goes through a testing, a prerequisite, a simulation and testing, and a mentored scoring. They have to keep scoring homes every 6 months in order to keep that credential. The prerequisite can be free, the simulation is free, the mentoring, depending on what time it is in the regional time frame, in that way. I mean, the Thurston Climate Collaborative is planning on subsidizing the cost for mentorship and training up 10 to 15 home energy score assessors in our community. If people get in at that time, then it can be subsidized. Otherwise, they may need to pay a professional home energy score assessor to get that last step to do the mentored home scoring to get their credential. Does that make sense? Okay. So one has to have this credential in order to assess a home. The home assessor, the energy score home assessor, not to be confused with the home assessors of the county, will visit a home and inspect more than 50 different detail points. Where's the insulation? What's the thickness? What kind of R value or insulation value is it? What about the windows? The efficiency of the HVAC equipment? Is there insulation in the walls? What about the crawl space? What about the attic? Thorough looking at things that Department of Energy, U.S. Department of Energy has identified are large drivers of home energy efficiency, looking at the asset, the home itself, the way that it's built, the way that it's insulated, the building envelope, the square footage also plays into it. Larger homes use more energy, smaller homes use less energy generally. That all plays into a model that the U.S. Department of Energy has created. The certified assessor puts those data points in, outshoots a score of 1 to 10, 1 being least efficient home, 10 being most efficient. There is a different way that you could show that, but 1 to 10 seems like a scale that a lot of us can think in a regular basis. And a report that is generated, and I'll show you some reports here in a moment. The assessment generally takes about 1 hour to complete, and the market costs for the assessment are between $150 to $350. In areas where there is a mandatory requirement, there is enough demand to keep prices on that low. In areas where there is more voluntary programs, there is less demand and prices are not kind of kept in check by a higher demand. Also, the area that has the $350 score is in the Bay Area of California, a lot of larger homes, but also it's a program that spans 9 counties, so travel is part of that and increases the cost of the assessment. Next slide, please. The ordinance itself is written as a disclosure rule so that people can go into the home buying process with more information. I know when I bought my first home, which is the one that I live in now here in Tumwater, I just bought it about 2 years ago. I had no idea what the energy bills were. I asked my realtor. He said, I guess it's probably about normal. I could have asked for the energy bills, and if the seller wanted to provide that and PSE also joined in, I could look at that. But that would only tell me what was happening in my home while it was sitting empty while no one was living in it. There's bits about how much it costs to operate a home and occupant behavior that all comes together to be how much your energy bill is. I'm not going to get into how many fish tanks my partner has and how that makes an impact on our energy bill, but there are different things that people do, but then there are the basic assets of the home and how efficient it operates. Like I mentioned before listing a home, the home seller would get a home energy performance report and put it on public listings of that real estate so that people can look at it before they need to drive to a home, visit a home. They can look at how efficient it is and make sure that they narrow their search if they are going to be cost burdened, that they narrow their search to homes that they can actually afford the full cost of the mortgage, the insurance, the mortgage insurance, and the electricity bill or the gas bill, so that they can not look at things that are outside of their price range and really narrow the scope so that they can make a good financial decision for themselves. The score is valid for 10 years unless there have been major changes to the things that impact the efficiency of a home. Building envelope, systems like HVAC or hot water heaters, and square footage. If you add a whole large addition to the home, that impacts the way that the home is in terms of energy efficiency. Next slide, please. Here is what it looks like in real life. This is a Zillow screenshot I took like Friday last week of a home in Hillsboro, Oregon. You can see it looks like any other home listing, but in the description down here, you see home energy score equals 5, HES report at this link. That's what you could expect to see with this ordinance. Next slide, please. And when you click on that link, this is what you'll see. This is a 2-page custom report that Hillsboro, Oregon has put together. And I'm actually going to get up and point at things real quick. You can see here that the home score is a 5 out of 10. You can see here that the energy is likely to be used this many kilowatts at this rate. So also rates for electricity change over time. We would make sure that if we had a report that was custom like this, that we would also put in the rate and the amount so that people could calculate that based on new or current energy rates. And for natural gas, this is an optional part where we put the carbon footprint. We could take that out and put more information on subsidies and weatherization programs, how to get a discounted heat pump, PSC programs, things of that nature, which are covered very efficiently in this little area here, where they have a link for where you can find the resources. Other jurisdictions, they'll list that out on the side here and say, like, if you need to get duct sealing, this utility has this option. There's different ways to visualize this, but the basic stuff is the score, the estimated cost for the year, the cost-effective improvements. So these priority improvements are things that can have a payback within 10 years. So the cost-effective. Here you see duct sealing, air sealing, and water heater when replacing. So those are the things that will pay back. These are other nice things that would help make it efficient, but together they could improve the home score to 8 and save $466 a year in energy costs doing those things. I know when I look at my home, I know the general things that I can do to improve the efficiency of my home, but not necessarily all the things that these certified assessors can identify. And you can see here that it even goes into, right now you have an R25 attic insulation, but eventually if you want to update your insulation, recommend R38 or R49, and that will give you more efficiency. Next slide, please. So here in Tumwater, we have a lot of renters, people who may want to buy homes, but may necessarily not be able to for some reason or other. Could be income, could be that they're only here for a short amount of time, any number of reasons. 57% of our homes are owner-occupied, and 32% of households are cost-burdened. There is a higher rate of cost burden in homeowners of color than in non-Hispanic white homeowners. And one thing I want to point out here, because this is a very important thing for why this is important for our carbon emissions, more than 2/3 of the housing units that will exist in 2050 exist today. So the new energy code and new homes, they're not going to get us to where we need to go in terms of reducing emissions. We have to make the existing homes that are here now more efficient. Residential energy is one of the largest greenhouse gas producing sectors in Thurston County. Buildings and energy and transportation are about each 50%, give or take. And the residential energy is a very large chunk of that. So that's why in 2022, I think it was 2022, staff was directed to work on something that will help reduce emissions in the residential home sector. PSC does other things as well. And I would say with climate change, it's never an either or, it's a yes and. We need to do all of the things to get to where the point is. So we have an Energize Thurston program where we subsidize heat pumps. We did 31 installations last year. All of that was grant funded in Tumwater. This would be another avenue of helping to provide that information and subsidy. Weatherization is done through Community Action Council. We have an action in the climate element to try to add some funding in the future to increase. The cap for that is very low. And a lot of people are just above it and can't reach those weatherization services. So the thought of adding a little bit of extra room there to expand the availability of those things. I'm getting off of the home energy score here, but just wanted to elaborate and say that it's not a this or that. It's a we must do yes and to a lot of things. Next slide, please. While we were putting together this draft ordinance, we did put some protections in the draft. That doesn't mean that everything that could possibly happen is guarded and protected or mitigated. There's a subsidy criteria. In the main section, there's two different versions of the ordinance because last minute, when the ordinance was going before council last, there was a question of like, which subsidy system do we want? Do we want just like the highest maximum and anybody up to 150% area median income can have a fully subsidized, no money out of pocket assessment? Or do we want to have a tiered system similar to how we do the heat pumps where up to a certain amount, up to like 120, you do some cost coverage, anything under 80% area median income, then it's completely covered in terms of funding. There are different ways that we could do this, and that is not set in stone and still very much up for discussion, as is the $4,000. We can ask for more, but it is not up to me what goes into the final adopted budget. If subsidy funding is not available, income-eligible households may be exempt. I don't love that. And some of the public commenters made a really good point as to why I don't love that, because it undermines the purpose of having the program and having more people have that information. But we are in a tough budget year, and some folks really appreciate there being a fallback to still move the policy forward when it's a tough budget year and do it better in other years in the future. There are hardship exemptions included for serious financial distress situations. It may not be exhaustive. There may be other exemptions that you all want to suggest. By all means, please do. And transfers are already exempt under the state seller disclosure laws. They're also exempt, so foreclosure, bankruptcy, transferring real estate properties in a divorce or to a child, to family members, that is exempt because they don't necessarily need to know that information. More of like a handing you over the thing in a, I'll move on from there. Next slide, please. Equity concerns are absolutely real. I do not in any way, shape, or form ever mean to diminish these. I would like to come up with creative solutions that can help not only us move this policy forward, if that is your intention, but also help other jurisdictions do a better job. A $150 to $350 assessment cost can matter a great deal. And having to go through the process of getting an assessor to your home when you have different work hours that maybe aren't so possible for you to have someone during waking hours to come do this, like there's procedural obstacles in that too. That's a real thing. Potential social stigma of low-scoring homes. I think a lot of this is my opinion, not a fact. I do believe that many of the homes in our area are going to score low. I don't think there's going to be very many high-scoring homes, so I think that this is a fear that a lot of us are going to end up dealing with if we get a score on our homes. But there's a fear that that's going to degrade the value of the home, make it so that you get less, which can help you in the next stage of your life, building generational wealth, anything that you could want for getting the most out of your investment. Real estate is generally thought of as, at least from what I've been told from my parents and mentors, home ownership is a very reliable investment where you basically do accrue value in most cases. But having anything that could potentially threaten that, I understand. And then a really wonderful concern that came up from Commissioner Crary is the concern that investors and house flippers would use this in a predatory way to use that information to make those improvements, not for the betterment of the energy efficiency of the community, but for profit in flipping homes. I'm originally from South Florida. I understand home flipping. While I would like, if they must do it, I would like them to do something that affects the community in terms of reducing energy burden or energy efficiency, but I don't want them, I'll move on from that too. It is other areas with policy of this kind. So this is an exhaustive list from 2023. I have not updated it since then because that's when we did the first particular policy memo, but you can see there are a lot of jurisdictions that have different kinds of home energy disclosure policies. A lot of them are tied with electric utilities. Of course, it behooves them to have people use energy efficiently. There are states that have voluntary home energy score programs. There are some that even put in water efficiency. There's a lot of different ways that jurisdictions have done this work to make sure that people know, either at time of listing or time of sale, what they can expect. After getting Commissioner Crary's email, I went down a rabbit hole for about 3 full days, and I'm still doing it. No, I appreciate it and I take it very seriously, and I do not want to cause harm by this work. I have not found anything to date that does show a causal link between home energy scores and displacement. I would really like to learn more about the scoring done with bias that you mentioned, and I'm still looking. I'm talking to community-based organizations in the Portland area to see, outside of local government, white papers. I've looked through newspaper comments and Reddit forums to try to find something. I haven't found it yet, but that doesn't mean that it's not out there. And I will keep looking and I will not stop. And it was clear from City Council in a prior work session that they don't want to adopt a cut and paste, copy and paste ordinance. They want it to consider some water-specific concerns and conditions. They want it to be crafted for our community because it would be passed, if it does pass, if it does get considered in our community and affect our residents. Next slide, please. So I'm going to show these questions and then one, hopefully, solution slide, and then move into questions and discussions. So the questions received by commissioners, given that Portland's mandatory disclosure program coincided with severe displacement in working class and Black residents in neighborhoods like Mississippi Avenue, what specific anti-displacement controls are or can be added to the ordinance to prevent similar wealth extraction in Tumwater? Why does the ordinance impose legal penalties and assessment fees on home sellers but require zero energy upgrades and post-purchase equity commitments from corporate real estate investors and flippers who buy low-scoring homes at a discount? What is the specific administrative procedure when the $4,000 annual subsidy pool is depleted? Will low-income sellers be granted an automatic $0 fee waiver, or will they be forced to pay out of pocket to comply with municipal code? Will there be a baseline tracking system to monitor low-scoring homes if they're disproportionately sold to out-of-state LLC investors flippers compared to first-time local home buyers? Will there be a rapid response for fixed-income seniors, probate estates, and distressed families needing emergency exemption from listing delays? And what would that rapid response look like? And if the city mandates home energy scores, who gets to perform these assessments and who profits from this newly created industry? We'll go to the next slide. Don't worry, we aren't moving on from those questions. They will be discussed. And some of them I hope to address in this very much not exhaustive list of ideas, either your fellow commissioners or I have had in terms of how to approach this. We can absolutely include a public dashboard of where subsidy dollars are available, scores, subsidized waivers, issues, and average wait time for assessments. This is data that we can get through this program, and we can make that public and accessible. We can track investor purchases and potentially monitor whether low-scoring homes are being bought disproportionately by LLCs, out-of-area investors, and repeat flippers. We can produce an annual report, and the Thurston Climate Mitigation Collaborative already plans to, but we can tweak that and make sure that we're covering the things that you all want us to. On implementation, including scores, costs, complaints, waivers, buyer types, geographic patterns. And we could absolutely identify triggers in which we pause the ordinance or repeal the ordinance if it does show to cause harm. I have no problem with that. I'm not the decision maker. We could partner with organizations to encourage a more diverse workforce of assessors. We already plan, as I mentioned, to regionally cover the cost of 10 to 15 assessors. We would love your guidance. That's actually the task that I get to work on in the collaborative, is the workforce assessment and workforce development. So please connect me with organizations. We were just going to go to WorkSource and Pack Mountain and see what went from there, but by all means, we can get more specific with that. We can publish assessor qualifications and complaint process to identify and address any instances of bias or conflict of interest. And one that's here at the end, we can also only you all, I don't get to be a we in this situation. There can be a recommendation to adopt only when the guardrails are ready, funded, and easy to understand. We don't need to move so fast that we make dumb mistakes. We can try our best to anticipate them, build in those mitigations and ways to alleviate any particular strain or potential issue or totally anticipated issue. I can go back to the last slide and address some of these quickly, and then we'll move on to just general discussion, and I'm done with my presentation. So in terms of the question, I have very short answers for these. Number one, I'm working on ideas. I absolutely welcome your ideas as well. I would like to know what you think about number two. We will absolutely put together a waiver and an application for number three. I do not anticipate us, and we can design it in such a way that no one is penalized because we ran out of money. We will have a waiver application, an exemption application, and likely be the same, and we can have that go through as quickly as we can. Number 4, we absolutely can. Number 5, I would like if you would be willing to describe more, please. And then 6, I would love some recommendations. Don't need to ask whatever questions, discuss whatever you want, but that's how I would like to engage on those questions, but there are more questions, I'm sure, and I'm happy to listen, learn, and try to provide the answers where I can, if I can. Thank you.
Talked about the assessors, that I wasn't quite clear, who's training these assessors?
So the county, through the Thurston Climate Mitigation Collaborative, we have a contracting process where we can all kind of opt in for climate stuff to share costs. And the way that it is written right now, the county, Thurston County, because they've passed the home energy score ordinance, would hold a contract. They did a competitive solicitation for a qualified group that will help us meet the quality assurance, quality control requirements of Department of Energy, train up the assessors, build the report, and they have been selected but not yet confirmed by the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners. Earth Advantage is the organization that won the bidding process, but I believe that goes to the Board of County Commissioners on the 18th. It was intended to go on the 4th, but got delayed until the 18th for consideration of that contract, which we could then opt in on.
Are they out of state?
They're in the Portland area. We had another another organization that also proposed, but their application was entirely AI and they were not qualified to do the work. Those were the 2 firms that submitted.
Does this ordinance include all homes, including triplexes, duplexes, ADUs? Is it literally everything that you can, I guess, list on it?
Yes and no. So it is limited to the types of dwelling units or buildings that can be scored by the tool. The Department of Energy is working on adding manufactured homes and stacked multifamily above 4 units to the scoring tool. I have asked them multiple times through the 3 years I've been working on this, and they're always almost there. Hopefully they'll get that soon, but the definitions in the packet in the ordinance are at the full extent of the buildings that this tool can be applied to at this time, which is mostly single family, up to quadplexes, and ADUs are part of that.
No apartments.
Not stacked apartments yet. If the apartments are, it's because of the shared walls aspect for the energy modeling. That's why they're working on getting the stacked multifamily. I would really love them to finish that particular aspect.
So one unintended consequence that I can think of is we're not really considering the benefits of a energy score for people who primarily rent, which can be folks who we're talking about how we want to get more folks out of renting into home buying, right? And we want to encourage this kind of growth in our community. So not having a score for apartments that are stacked can leave out a large population in Tumwater, especially with all the buildings that are being built recently. And I'd like to understand how we can mitigate unintended consequences for renters.
One of the people that I intend to talk with in the next coming weeks to address some of Commissioner Carey's concerns is someone from the Portland area who apparently is making inroads in being able to have stacked multifamily be used. I don't know how they're doing that separate from the DOE, but there have also been some remote assessments that have also been not official through DOE, but done in other jurisdictions. So I'm hopeful. And also, it doesn't address that, by all means, is absolutely left out here. City of Minneapolis has a time of application energy disclosure that they do for renters. It's the only jurisdiction I'm aware of in the United States that has that for renters, but it is a model that we could look at. And the climate element does have us looking at extending this to renters in the future. just getting kind of the easier parts done first, and then going into all the different websites that all rentals are listed and advertised on after.
So there are unintended consequence related to that I can see is, owners that would be required to have this score would potentially be individuals and not large corporations. I know we've mentioned this before, but that would potentially incentivize developers to continue building up and focus on a specific type of building rather than supporting homes that do get scored.
Density as a loophole, essentially.
What happens when you're non-compliant? What's the penalty?
It is every consecutive day. It refers to our civil area of code, so it's the same fine that any other civil infraction in code would be. I believe it's $50 the first day, and then it goes up to a couple $100 each day after that. There was a lot of conversation in the early days of developing the ordinance in which we heard from folks that mostly, please make the fine huge so that it's cheaper to do the assessment rather than get fined. That was one opinion that we heard. Also another of, please, let's just do education instead of fines, which is more the direction that I've been told to go in, where we always seek compliance first. So educate people. Perhaps they didn't do this because they couldn't afford it and they didn't know about the subsidy. That's an opportunity for us to let them know about the subsidy, get them signed up for that, get the assessment. We don't have to slap people with fines in order to get to where we need them to be or where we intend for them to be. Those are different directions that I can take direction from, and I know that there's a citywide effort to kind of change the way that we're doing code enforcement too, so that this would fall in line with that direction as well.
You're saying that you're not going to fine people?
Not necessarily. That is not up to me. That's up to City Council, and you can all make recommendations for how you want to do this. But Portland spends $0, and I know I keep providing Portland examples because they have collected the most data and done the most analysis, other than Austin, Texas, which isn't a home energy score, but rather a utility-based version of this that's been in operation longer. But Portland, they spend $0 on enforcement.
Someone's fined out of their house. I mean, they're fined so much they just can't afford it. Would they lose their house?
I really do not anticipate that that would ever happen here.
So we can talk to the city attorney and we can get you an answer.
Have someone come in and buy it up.
And what does the ordinance say about when the score has to be in place, when you list it for sale?
When you list it for sale. And then there's the certain number of days for each occurrence of infraction. But again, education as a means of compliance. Likely that we would be able to have compliance within the time frame before a home sells, so it's still be useful information.
So if you don't mind, I want to do a quick temperature check, because I want to keep you on time, and I also want to make sure that this process is helpful to you. And so I'd like to check in. You've heard a lot of information. And so does this feel like something you would make a recommendation at the end of this evening when we get to 8 o'clock? Or do you feel like you would like 30 days to think about it, to read more, to ask questions, and to receive more information? And then we can have, I know next month we're going to the regional meeting, but we could have a short special meeting. We could do it remotely and come to a recommendation at that time. Does that feel more comfortable?
More comfortable with more information, more questions.
Yeah. Would you like a mechanism to send in more questions? Would you like to set a due date for yourselves, such as a week or 2 weeks, to really come up with a list of comprehensive questions? Just to give yourselves a stopping point, pause point?
Yeah, I think that's 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
By comprehensive, you mean we individually would send messages and throughout the mechanism.
Yes, yeah, you can send them to me, and then I will make sure that those get all put together. And then at the end of that 2 weeks, I will share those with staff, because it sounds like we really need to reach out to, Alyssa really understands the program, but we want to make sure we're checking with the city attorney and all of our different specialists. And then we can have that information back to you. What format would be appropriate?
Format doesn't matter to me at all. I mean, I just send in the questions. Unless you want a format.
I have a question about what we're really being asked for. Are we being asked for a yay or nay situation? Are we being asked for yes with these things to consider? Are we being, what exactly? I know it's a recommendation, but is what we're being asked a recommendation to move forward or not? Or is it black and white, or is there gray in there?
Like, what does the city council want?
Yes.
So I'm going to, this is why I invited Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Jefferson, because the language was, we will send this to the Equity Commission for recommendation. So there is gray, but I would like to have your input, Mayor Pro Tem.
About the gray area, and the way I took it as a recommendation to look at the equity lens. And I wasn't for or against. I'm looking at directly with equity in mind. And if there are changes in there that are acceptable to the commission, then I could see moving forward. But we have to decide what kind of changes, because I want to make sure that the seller is protected. I don't want people losing their homes. I don't want them losing their wealth, losing their equity. I mean, they've worked hard for a home. I want to see first-time home buyers able to buy a home. So, I mean, I don't know what that looks like yet, but I'm just still not sure. Like with the example for Hillsborough, I think that's where Intel is. That's a very wealthy area. Right. That's a very wealthy area. And my son could barely afford living there when he was working in Intel there, so I know what it's like there. And so it's a very plastic-looking place. Everything is high-rise and perfect-looking. And so I don't know if that was really it. Or they have data on homes in Tumwater, the older homes in Tumwater, see what that looks like.
We don't have yet, because there isn't enough of a demand for this in order for there to be a workforce that works here yet. Because they have to keep scoring a home every 6 months, there is no incentive to make this your job at this point. However, with Olympia and Thurston County passing, we will have some folks, and there is one person, to the best of my knowledge, who has gotten assessment qualification here so far. They are charging the absolute maximum that they possibly can, because there's no competition yet, and that is their prerogative. We could try to inquire that person to do a sample number of homes. Just know that they're charging the absolute most that they could. But that is the amount. $300.
Oh, is it capped at? That's like the most?
No, so 350 is the most that I have heard from talking to other practitioners in the area. And that's in the Bay Area, like driving 4 counties away.
Doesn't sound like very much, but to a person that's selling their home, that's, on income, that's barely making it, that's a lot of money.
Really? I in no way mean to diminish that.
Starting area, I mean, because the fees of the rest of the transaction is going to go up. And so it's just these little things that are just nipping at them as they're trying to sell their home and stressing them out. And
we can try to.
So I guess to answer your question, I think, you think the goal is to hear from the Equity Commission after looking at this through a wider lens and weighing the pros and the cons what you would like to see. And it could be a recommendation that we haven't thought of yet, right? Like, this is gonna go back to council. So you could say, no, you know, the good outweighs the bad, I think it should move forward as is. You could say, no, I prefer it be voluntary. You could say, I think we need to scrap it and start over for something that is, those are the recommendations. And it is a gray area, right? Because we don't have all the data, and you have all already brought up some very good points that I think weren't considered. The gentrification, the renters being, you know, already left out of the conversation. And so, and I don't want you to feel like we can also recommend that we give you more time if you need more time, because I don't want it to be hurried, because that's what government's really good at, is rushing through and making decisions. And, you know, and Alyssa, you mentioned in your presentation that there will be triggers to cease things that can be built in, but then what happens if the harm's already been done, if that trigger goes off? So looking through that lens, just to make sure that there aren't unintended consequences when we're trying to do something that's good for the environment and good for our community, but then it ends up accidentally harming people who are elderly, trying to get out of their homes so they can get into a place where they can live the rest of their lives and afford to do so. And that's very expensive if you get into that kind of housing, and just taking all those things into consideration. And I know it's a lot, and I so appreciate you.
I'd like to propose that we take 2 weeks to collect questions, and then we as staff, do you feel like we could answer questions in a week? Do you feel like that?
Depends on if
Sure,
the question is
it
something
depends
I've
on
never considered.
how deep the data dive is, but we would love
I
to be
have
able to answer the
availability in my schedule to do as many rabbit holes as you all need. And I enjoy them also, so don't think that that's a bad thing. Fascinating, and
So what we could do is produce a staff report. So we could produce a report for you that would answer all those questions, and commit to publishing the packet very early so that that's published so the public can see it, and also you have access to it and can look through that. And then we have an impromptu, like a very short remote meeting in September. Does that seem like a good workable plan? I know the second Monday of September, we're at the regional meeting. Would you like that to happen the week after the remote meeting for this topic?
After the regional.
Or would you like it to happen the same week? So I don't want to overload you.
Yeah, that's me. I don't really matter, but I wouldn't be available with that for everybody else. The third Monday. We can change it then, if a different day.
So the council wanted 60 days from July 21st. So July 21st, August 21st, September 21st. That would be that Monday.
Would be that Monday.
Open it to the discussion here. I don't want to make choices for the board.
Which would be another day of the week.
After the
I'm open, so.
And also being mindful that school starts in September.
Oh, I'll have colds by then.
Coaching generally happens in the evenings.
What's that?
Coaching generally happens in the evenings, doesn't it?
It does. but season doesn't start until November.
So we want to avoid Tuesdays for sure, because those are our council meetings and work sessions.
So let's start here, before or after, what feels best so far? Before we even do a date, before or after?
Oh, have to be before the
or-
21st.
Yeah,
You mean
Yeah.
before or after the?
the 14th.
I want to,
Does it matter?
does it really matter? I mean,
I mean, I don't have my work calendar here, so I'm kind of operating in a little blindly. I travel sometimes for work. But
Those will be remote.
it'll be remote, that's right, okay, and in the evenings, okay. After,
That week. I was going to say that,
That would be the
16th.
Oh, no, I can't. Sorry.
Roll that, September 16th. Okay.
16th?
Yeah.
Make a motion. The motion will be for meeting number 16th. Second. Figure out what time?
Yeah, I mean, do we want to just keep it like 6 o'clock? That work? Okay. We have a motion, for September 16th at 6 o'clock. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Not in favor say no. My words. Motion carries. It's getting late for me. Motion carries.
Okay, so I will send a reminder email tomorrow morning to let you know of the 2 weeks. And I will probably send you periodic reminders through the weeks to collect your questions. We'll build a staff report out of those questions, and we'll get that to you ASAP so that you have plenty of time to review and so the public can also see that. And then we will have a remote meeting at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the 16th. So you will have 2 meetings on that week.
that September 16th meeting, we convene to compose our recommendation or to discuss.
Look for sending in our questions in the next 2 weeks, right? 16th, that we should be, that should, 16th, by then we should come together to create a recommendation. Does that feel?
That's what we're expected to do,
Yeah,
I
that-
think, because the 21st.
Because the 21st is when,
Would be that Monday, that
with
following
that
Monday.
Monday, that's when council wants a recommendation. Yeah.
So recommendation, we will have a
If we don't,
I can ask for more time.
That could be the recommendation, is to have more time.
recommendation.
We know that on the 16th.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's a lot of information and a lot of work, and I'm excited that you have your first policy review.
Wrapping up. So, I think we've talked about it a bunch now, but our next meeting is on the 14th.
Yeah.
Right, but that's a special meeting. I do have a quick question for you, logistics-wise, Kelly. Because, I believe each equity commission chair is being asked to do just a quick presentation. I think you've probably seen the question in Kelly's email. I wanted to make sure that I don't do anything that's not procedural. I would like to share how I will be answering those questions with the group, but I want to make sure that we're well represented, so, but also make sure I'm following procedures. So if I were to like draft something and send that to the group, is that okay or not?
Go ahead and
go ahead and send that to me. Look at the right one. If you could go ahead and forward that to me, I can send that to the commissioners.
Okay, so, I will do that, within the next week or so, just kind of here's how I'm going to present our group, and how we've been operating so far, and then, incorporating all your feedback from their questions of what we need, from them, and what would be helpful. You guys have eyes on it, if I miss anything, just that way, our group is well represented. And that will be at their, council chambers beginning at 6, so look forward to seeing you all there. Anything else in the order tonight? Discussion? I'm not hearing anything, so this meeting is adjourned. Yes.